Hey guys, well, we got the engine off the stand. I wrestled it down here onto the wood platform. We're gonna check our crankshaft end play, which is the whole reason we started this endeavor, going this deep in here. So I got it there. I need to rig up a better way to torque the flywheel nut because that's like 326 foot-pounds or something. And my torque wrench goes to 250. I tried using a metal bar to hold it. Piece of flat, drilled some holes and put it in across the clutch, but it flexes too much. I need a piece of angle, probably one that's longer. And then I need to find some kind of torque multiplier or a calibrated piece of pipe or something. But there's a quick lesson in crankshaft end play. I don't know how thorough we got into this before, but drew a poor little graphic here. That's our main bearing, number one main bearing. That's our crankshaft. You place a shim in there, and that dictates how much movement there is to allow that to move back and forth. They want essentially 55 thousandths to 67 thousandths. So let's see what we end up with. Let me try to get this where you can see it. And zoom in even more. Well, you know what? Let's zoom out. So what I've done in this setup is clamp this to the block. Like I said, it pushes in a lot easier than it pulls out. So I'm going to pull it out evenly. Set the indicator. It's pretty sensitive on this arm setup. Set it to 0. Now I'll push the crank back, and that mark is 5, that mark is 6. So it looks like we're right at 6, but I'm going to test it again. 0. 6. Spec is 55 to 67, and we're at 60 essentially. So we're close to the middle. They want it close. I don't know. I'm going to do a little research. I know the shim that's in there is about 35 thousandths. I'm going to see where that lies in the range and decide. Obviously, you want it closer, as little as possible. So I'm going to decide what shim I'm going to get. If I'm going to get a shim, I am missing a dowel pin for the crank that I don't think's ever been there. So I will need to order that, and then I will figure out what we're going to do with the shim. Anyway, that's a little lesson for tonight. And that's tonight's temperature. It's a little warm in here. Yeah, it's sitting on the 90. Hey guys, so tonight we are going to work on installing the front bearing, the number 4 main bearing. The third piece of the case is in the oven, resting at 350 degrees, and the number 4 main bearings in the freezer. So I'm on my way to get the case out of the oven. I used an oven mitt this time. Last time I burned my hand a little bit for the so there's our piece of case. Over here in the freezer is our bearing. Now I would hope in theory this thing will drop right in. This bolt right here has a shoulder on it, and that is what fixes that bearing and keeps it in place. I'm going to get it to start. It's supposed to act as a little bit of a guide. Okay. Let me make sure I have this right. There is an oil slot over here on the side. You can't see it, but said to let this protrude. I'm following the procedures now. Protrude 1 millimeter. That should keep it from falling through. Now in theory, this thing ought to drop right in. Yeah, we'll call it drop right in with a little help. Alright. And then this bolt fixes it. Alright. So that thing is hot. Cooked a little oil out around all these studs, etc. But I believe for right now we're going to let that do a little resting. Okay, so I've gathered up, I think, all the pieces we need down here. Put this piece of the case on. So there are 3 little rubber silicone inserts that go in the case. There's one there, one there. According to the book, there's one there. And that one, in this case, is black. And it's the only one in the gasket kit that would fit. It's a little tighter than all the rest of them. And that's definitely it. Because I believe the other 2 ones in the case, or in the gasket set, are for the oil cooler. Okay, so that's in there. That's it. The oil pump pickup is down here. I guess it's just relying on case pressure, because in both books it doesn't say anything about any sort of gasket being there. I can show you the picture real quick, so no one will call me a liar. Guess I could have been prepped for this. So there's an arrow there, and one there. Of course, it's in white, so it's hard to see. It looks like there's one there, but that's actually the stud protruding. So we will come on down here, look at the 3rd piece. So this oil tube goes in, can you still see me? Let me get that out of the way. Oil tube, they call it something, goes in there, and it has a rubber gasket. I've cleaned this out, but it's probably a good idea just one more time. Blow that thing out. Kit comes with 2 rubber gaskets, whatever you want to call them. So the bottom one, the hole goes to the case. They appear to be identical. The top one, the hole goes away from, and then that drops in the case. I think that has something to do with the bypass. I'll look it up in the book, but it says something about that. Make sure we're not in there too far. Okay. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And then we look through our gasket kit here that Mr. Ryan sold us. And of course, I'm not prepared, But there are 3 different gaskets. So let's see what we got here. I think that's it. Doesn't look right either. I think that's the one we're going to use. So I'm going to double and triple check that, and then we'll come back and we will put this thing on. Okay. This may go against all conventional wisdom, but I'm going to use some of this Loctite 574 to secure this gasket. The reason I say this, and I'm doing this, is because when I worked as a mechanic, I had to reseal the cam box on a Porsche 944, and it was definitely leaking oil. And that whole cam box lifts off the head on those cars. I don't need those, I need the gasket up here. And I took the cam box off, timing belt and all that stuff, and alright guys, let's get this thing on there correctly. I think we're more like so. So anyway, I took that off and cleaned it up, but I used one of those bristle discs, and I slightly gouged the head at one end, and that thing leaked like a sieve. So we ended up going back and using this on the gasket, and that shit doesn't fit for whatever reason, and that may push against it, I don't know. Let's see, because none of these other ones are going to be anywhere close. Yeah, there's no way that gasket's going to go on there. Got a little tab hanging out up here. Could it be that one? Well, let's try that direction. No, that one's nowhere close either, so we have to be this, and I guess it won't matter down on this bottom one right here because that plug pushes against the crankcase. So anyway, well, it didn't leak like a sieve, but it leaked just as bad as it did before. So I pulled it back apart and I put the gasket in there and used this stuff, and it's sealed. And subsequently, every one I did since then, I used this stuff on. There was never a problem. I'm not so sure there's any 944s left on the road, but I worked on quite a few of them back in the day. The day being the late 90s. Alright. So, let's bring you up to the case, or the block, I should say. So that's on there. Oil tubes in. Let's zoom in a little. Hope y'all can see all this. Doesn't look too bad. Put our little rubber grommets in there. Since this is going to be my last opportunity to do anything inside the case, I'll put a little oil on everything. Actually, I'm going to grab some assembly lube also. We'll stick some of that on there. We've got a little black one in the case, 2 clear ones, Everything is lined up. Stick this on there. That's being a pain in the butt. Okay. Track down a couple of these. You know what? These are going to actually be rear motor mount bolts. So that's why I'm a little short on some hardware. So we're going to go ahead and get the ones on we can, and we'll pull it down with that. And then I will track down those motor mounts. And track down some washers too, because I'm not sure where they all went. Just going to put them on real quick to pull this thing down. At least the sealant won't set up in a hurry at the top. I have a feeling I got a bunch of washers laying somewhere in the bottom of the parts washing machine. So I'm going to go track down those washers and get the right tools, and I'll be right back.